Welcome to the Sports Card Hustle.
Hey everybody, this is Michael Combry coming to you with another episode on the Sports Card Hustle channel, where I'm going to talk to every one of you today about 5 tips for collectors returning to the sports card world. That's right, 5 tips for collectors returning to the sports card world, because as we've seen over the last months or as far back as a year, there's been more and more people coming into the sports card hobby, which is making the market grow bigger than ever before. You have new sports card collector, flippers, and investors, and you have the collectors from yesteryears coming back into it. So I've put together 5 tips, kind of like a survival guide for collectors returning to the sports card world, because it's not what it used to be, but in my opinion, it is better than ever. So let's get right into tip number 1 for today. So tip number 1 for today is simple. Don't chase everything. And that is really going to be tip number 1 for today. I don't want you guys chasing or running after every card out there. Back in the early 90s, it was quite easy to go after every card of a specific team. And that's really because there wasn't as many options out there. Now we have cards for every kind of collector, starting with your lower end sets. For example, in the NBA world, you have NBA hoops, but then you have things such as Panini Prism, that's a little bit higher end, and then you have things all the way up to a National Treasures collection that can run you up to $1,000 or more a card. So you really have to be aware that if you're chasing every single sports card out there, you're gonna probably run yourself into the ground. So I don't want you chasing everything, because this is not the sports card hobby of yesteryears. This is now the modern sports card ever. And there are cards for every type of collector, going down to the low end sets, all the way up to the extremely high end sets that people can rip off $1,000 purchases without even really thinking twice. So if you're chasing everything or chasing a specific team and trying to collect every single card, it's not going to be as easy as it was before you came back to the hobby. So that is going to be tip number 1. Don't chase every single set or every single player's card. Now, rolling right into tip number 2 is you got to be aware that you're probably not going to retire off your 80s sports card collection. Now, there are some prime example of very valuable cards from the late 80s and early 90s, but as a general rule, you're not going to retire off those cards because they were, one, mass produced. You can probably Google the junk wax era and learn a little bit about how often cards were produced and kind of what happened to the market as a whole. But cards were produced in quantities back in the late 80s, and it was very easy to get every card you wanted to if you were just opening packs or going to your local card shops. So it's really simple supply and demand. There's a limited amount of demand for these cards, but there's an ample amount of supply. So being that that is the case, you're probably not going to get rich off your 80 sports cards that are still in your basement. Now you can go through them and look through them and see what you enjoyed to collect back in the day to reinvigorate your passion for the hobby. But just don't think you're going to go into it and get rich because you have a lot of sports cards from the late 80s and early 90s stashed away in that basement of yours. Keep in mind that things have changed, and it's always going to be about the supply and demand. But I thoroughly encourage you, if you haven't heard of the era yet, Google junk wax era, read up on that, and see exactly what happened to sports cards in the late 80s so you can learn a little bit more about that. I'll probably cover that exact topic on a later date, but for now, I want you to Google junk wax era and learn a little bit more. Now, tip number 3 for the day is, where did all the companies go? You probably came back to the hobby, and if you're new, you wouldn't know about this, but if you came back to the hobby as an old timer or someone that collected sports cards back in the day and you're just getting back into it, where did all the card companies go? Well, it's quite simple. There was a consolidation of power over time. So a lot of these sets have been purchased by companies such as Panini, Topps, and Upper Deck. And a lot of these companies now have exclusive deals with their respective sports. So Topps is the premier baseball card. They're really the one that makes all the Major League Baseball cards. And if you're collecting, you're going to exclusively want to buy Topps cards. Panini has a lock or a monopoly on football and basketball. Now, you might still see something such as a Don Russ, and you might remember back in the day that being a card you would collect, but now it's owned as a subset of cards by Panini. So Panini has football and basketball, and Upper Deck really is the card maker that focuses on hockey. So you got to be aware, a lot of these card companies did go away. Some of the sets have become subsets of these greater companies. But Panini is the king of football and basketball, Topps is king of baseball, and Upper Deck is king of the ice, or king of hockey if you didn't get that reference. Now, rolling right into tip number 4, and this is something that I really can't stress enough to new sports card investors and collectors of the past. If you're getting back into the hobby, great. If you're just getting into the hobby, that's great as well. But be keenly aware. A lot of people are running, that's right, they're running all the way on over to the sports card hobby with hopes of the riches and the fame. Well, maybe not the fame, but at least the riches. And you got to be aware that making money, tip number 4, making money is not easy. It's like anything else. If you want to make money, you got to put in the work. You got to put in the hours of research. You got to be willing to take a couple hits and fall to the ground and maybe lose some money on some cards. Making money in anything you ever do in life is not going to be easy, and the same could be said for sports cards. Making money is work. If you're coming into this with the ideas of making a lot of money, it can be done. But you're going to have to put in the work, you're going to have to put in the hours, you're going to have to put in the research, and you're going to have to take some bumps along the way. So if you're coming to this hobby from being a past collector, or if you're coming to this hobby from being an investor that's just getting into it, be aware, making money is not easy. You got to be willing to do the work, and that is tip number 4. Always be aware that making money in sports cards, making money in a business, making money on a side hustle, it's all work. It all takes research. It all takes the man hours. It all takes the bumps and bruises along the way. But if you're willing to take the bumps and bruises, you're willing to put in the work, you're willing to put in the hours, and you're willing to learn, you can make some money in this, but it's never going to be easy. So keep that in mind if you're just looking for a quick buck, because usually the quick buck is the one that will get you. Anyways, tip number 5 for new sports card collectors or sports card collectors just coming back to the hobby is, drum roll please, take your time. That's right, take your time, because if you're not taking your time, you're not going to put in the work that it's going to take to have some level of success in this game. You got to take your time. You got to put in the research. You got to put in the hours. You got to start small and buy cards that you're willing to learn about and wait to flip down the road. Or if you're just looking to collect cards, you got to make sure you get a great deal. So you still have to put in the time and the research before you start buying, because there's more cards than ever before as far as sets, subsets, and parallels. There's more people probably involved in the hobby as ever before, and the market is consistently growing. So if you're not taking your time, you're going to get burned. You have to be patient. And I always suggest for anyone, if you're looking to flip cards or become an investor, I always suggest being a collector first, because going through your old cards, going through your new cards, looking them up on eBay and finding comparable price comps, haggling and negotiating for deals is only going to make you better over time. So the more time you're willing to take and the more patience you have, the more likely it is that you, my friend, that's right, you, my friend, will be a successful collector, investor, or flipper. So you got to take your time. You can't rush into anything. Rome was never built in a day. Rome was one of the greatest cities ever built, but it was built over time. So you got to take your time. You got to be keenly aware that patience is the game, and anything that comes easy is usually going to go away at some point forever. So you got to put in the work, put in the research, take your time, have patience, and as a collector that may be coming back into it, you have to forget a lot of what you knew in the past. And as an investor, collector, or flipper just coming into the game, you have to be aware that this is not an easy game to play. There are a lot of people putting in the man hours doing their research. There are a lot of people willing to buy cards and maybe lose a little bit of money on them to learn the game. And there are a lot of people that are investors but were first collectors, so they have some keen insights and keen awareness on what cards are going to pop, what parallels are going to be worth money down the line, and also what sort of sets, such as Panini Hoops, might be more valuable and is also underlooked or undervalued at this point in time. And fun fact, I currently think Panini Hoops is very undervalued at this time, because as I've taken my time and put in the work and the research, I found that for newer people coming into the hobby, they might not want to spend a couple $100s on a card at first. So if you're looking at a Luka Doncic and you're seeing his Panini Prisms go for $400, or you're looking at a Zion Williamson whose Panini Prisms have been going for upwards of $600, $700, $800, and he hasn't even played more than 30 games in the league. His Panini Hoops, though, aren't as expensive, but I think there's going to be more demand for that type of set, and that comes from being patient, doing the research, and taking my time, because that set specifically, I think, will have more demand as more investors and collectors get into the market, and the prices of prisms and prism silvers continue to skyrocket. People are going to want to have rookie cards of players they love. So looking into something like a Panini Hoops might be a great undervalued buy. So you got to do your research. You got to look into the cards that are great looking cards that have great condition. And as a collector, think about what everybody else is going to want to collect. So you got to find value that is currently selling for under market value if you really want to be a great investor. If you're just a collector, make sure you still get a great deal, because that's never out of style. Everybody loves a good deal, just like every human being on this planet that I've ever talked to likes paying less in taxes. So everybody likes paying their fair share, but nobody likes usually paying more in taxes. And the same can be said for sports cards. Nobody wants to pay too much. You want to get a fair deal. And that all comes with the 5 tips that I shared today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. You need to give it a big thumbs up right now. Comment below. It really helps me out on YouTube and lets YouTube know that people are enjoying this video. So hopefully it will get more and more eyeballs. And until next time, I love each and every one of you, my friends. Please stay safe, stay healthy, stay blessed throughout these uncertain times. And more importantly than ever, stay inside if you can. Until the next episode on the Sports Card Hustle, I'm Michael Combrey. Over and peace!